From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on AgDay, celebrating history on the farm in a very small way.
But it's something that you can look at for an hour or two and you probably didn't see everything.
Why the makers of this planter say it could change the industry as the U.S. works to get new trade deals on several fronts.
The issues at hand would be the potential of a free trade agreement when negotiation with the U.K. is at hand.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Following a newly inked Phase 1 deal with China, the administration is setting its sights on fresh possibilities, including a potential free trade agreement with the UK. The UK now moving toward exiting the European Union and opening up the opportunity for one-on-one negotiations. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin saying last week that the administration is eyeing a trade deal with the United Kingdom before the end of 2020. Those talks could start as soon as February. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is expected in Washington next month to begin talks with President Trump.
In 2020, the issues at hand would be the potential of a free trade agreement when negotiation with the UK is at hand. I'm not sure on the timing of that yet, but we've gone through the TPA process on Capitol Hill with regard to the negotiating objectives, etc. So when and if we are able to do that, we'll be able to begin very quickly.
The news coming during the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Mnuchin adding that there will be a renewed focus on Europe and the idea of free, fair, and reciprocal trade. And negotiations appear to be moving forward on another trade front. As we first told you last week, the U.S. could have a mini trade deal soon with India. Now Reuters is reporting U.S. negotiators want India to buy up to $6 billion worth of American ag products. Insiders telling them the deal would include India rolling back higher tariffs on things such as almonds, walnuts, apples, and frozen poultry. President Trump is scheduled to meet with India's Prime Minister next month. Happening later this week, the president's expected to sign the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement. Officials saying the signing ceremony will happen on Wednesday at the White House. Canada still has to ratify that agreement. Canada's parliament is expected to begin consideration of the deal this week. Now, it's not known how long it will take, but some suggest it could take until April before they move to approve the plan. The Trump administration is aiming for the deal to go into effect by July. Developing story we're following: an Iowa biodiesel plant is reopening after it shut down late last year. The Western Dubuque biodiesel plant in Farley, Iowa, starting up the plant on Friday after shutting down most of December and January. A representative telling AgDay's Betsy Gibbon the small refinery exemptions created trouble in the market, but the biodiesel tax credit extension is now the certainty that the plant needs to start up again. President Trump signed a budget deal which included an extension of the $1 per gallon biodiesel blenders tax credit back in December. Shares of Bayer AG were trading higher to end the week after it was reported the company will settle lawsuits over Roundup for around $10 billion. Now that's according to Bloomberg. The company has already set aside $8 billion. The settlements would end the disputes over whether the glyphosate herbicide caused plaintiffs cancer. But Bayer says, quoting here, there is no settlement and the mediation process is continuing diligently and in good faith to explore resolution under the auspices of Ken Feinberg. There is also no certainty or timetable for a comprehensive resolution, end quote. And Bayer continues to say that glyphosate is safe. A new report finds the drinking water in dozens of cities nationwide is contaminated with elevated levels of forever chemicals, or PFAS. Now, the report comes from the Environmental Working Group. It claims to be a nonprofit and gets funding from private donors as well as several businesses in the organic industry. It tested tap water samples from 44 places in 31 states and the District of Columbia. Some of the highest PFAS levels detected were in samples from areas such as Miami, Philadelphia, New Orleans, and the northern New Jersey suburbs of New York City. In 34 places where the group says it found PFAS, it claims the contamination has not been publicly reported by the EPA or state environmental agencies. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention say nearly all Americans have PFAS in their blood. The health effects of low levels of these chemicals are unknown. The USDA says it's moving forward with having a foot and mouth disease vaccine bank It's thanks to funding in the 2018 Farm Bill. The first priority of the bank is to increase the U.S. stockpile of vaccines. And the agency goal is to invest between $15 million and $30 million on the vaccines by the end of this year. And a human virus has many people on edge right now. That's after a second case of a coronavirus was found in the U.S., this time in the Midwest. Officials saying the woman had traveled to Wuhan, China, the center of the outbreak, and then returned to Chicago. They say she wasn't ill while she traveled, and they don't believe she spread the virus during that time. But health officials say more than 60 people in 22 states are under investigation for that virus, and at least 7 major cities in China are under a travel ban. Major landmarks around China are closed, including Shanghai Disneyland. On Friday, the country reported 830 cases with 25 deaths. And the winter storms keep coming with a strong jet stream pushing things along. Meteorologist Cindy Clausen joins us. She has an update.
Yeah, Clinton, we've had an active jet stream for sure. And as we look at our map, you can see that in the Northeast, we have one retreating trough, and we've been seeing some stormy weather over the weekend. Putting this in motion, things get a little bit quieter for the middle of the week. But as we get into the later part of the week and into next weekend, look at that, another big trough coming along for the eastern part of the country. It looks a little deeper than it has from our model, and so that moves off and to the Northeast again. So we're going to be looking at potentially more stormy weather and more cooler weather, at least towards the end of the week for the eastern part of the country. But let's look at another nicer picture, and this one is beautiful. It was shared with us by Richard Brown in England. Just check out that spectacular sunrise. But Richard says it was his dog Ted who alerted him to the stunning sunrise and asked if he wouldn't mind capturing him in front of it. What an awesome picture. Thanks so much for sharing. Coming up in just a few minutes, I'll have your national forecast. Clinton?
The stock market has been breaking records left and right as of late. When will that bubble burst? We'll get some insights coming up. And later, the history of farming displayed on a very small scale. The story behind this coming up in the country. USDA releasing its weekly sales report on Friday, reporting over 1 million metric tons of corn sold, with increases primarily for Japan. Also 790,000 metric tons of soybeans, primarily for China. But the market is continuing to wait for those big buys from China. Here's where we start this week from CME.
Today in the grain market, soybeans were down yet again. There just is no China buying yet after that phase 1 trade deal was signed, and it's got everyone wringing their hands, and the market continues to fall. The meal demand is also low because of the feed demand was low. Now this new China virus is really canceling out any kinds of optimism about that phase 1 deal, and it's canceled out any momentum. It seemed like right after the deal was signed, the market has just turned south. Corn was easier today, but the futures are still look strong, especially because they broke out of the channel that they had been in. And even though the market didn't hold up on top, it looks like it gives trader a lot of hope that the market's going to continue to move higher. It's still eyeing that $4 mark. Wheat again falling. It's certainly some profit taking here at the end of the week, but the futures are seem to be just taking a little bit of a breather. Traders are watching to see if China is going to be doing anything. Right now they've been buying a lot of grain from the drought-stricken Australia. That's really good news for the U.S. because they're looking at the possibility of really getting some of that business because they're paying up for it. It's pretty expensive in Australia right now, and maybe that's going to move back over to the U.S. The cattle was pretty steady right now. The futures are weakening though. The technical support numbers did breach, and I think that confirms that the market is topping out, and we're going to start to see some of these numbers that we haven't seen since actually Halloween. Think about that the market's been really strong and staying in this channel for quite a while.
Tommy Grisafi with Advanced Trading, our guest in studio today. Tommy, let's talk about this stock market because it just continues to set record after record after record.
It's on fire. We're 600-700 points away from being at 30,000. Wow. Remember when I first started working with you years ago, we were coming back from the big crash. We were at 7,000, 8,000, 9,000. Money has tripled. Be like corn going from $2 to $6. But corn's not doing that.
Right.
Stocks and commodities are two different things, and you got to know that. As a someone involved in agriculture and someone involved in financial markets, corn and beans and wheat aren't something you buy and hold forever. There's something you grow, you look for opportunities, you look for basis opportunities, you dump them. Stocks, according to Warren Buffett, guy looks like he's done okay, buying and holding, stock picking. America's on fire, unemployment's at record lows. Interest rates across the world are coming down. Almost every major successful financial country in the world is in an interest rate lowering pattern. There's almost no countries raising rates of strong financial countries. Where are you going to put your money? Grandma sat out this rally. All these people used to like to put their money in the bank. They're making 2%, and last year the stock market was up 30%. Greed, it becomes addictive. Probably won't happen forever. Corrections are natural. Take some time to do a little studying. We've had 5 major crashes. We had that flash crash. Markets do correct, and when they do, this one will be vicious.
Okay. Yeah, and it is an election year where there's a lot of political things happening. When do you start to see indicators of where that change happens?
Sometimes it just happens without notice. Bombs fly, someone bombs us and really hurts a lot of Americans. This could change really quickly. But overall, though, you got to watch for consumer habits. We're building a lot of houses. The housing number was great. If people are working, it's a great time for America. We're in the longest bull run of history of the American stock market. We've never had a run this long. It never lasts forever. Enjoy it. I shouldn't be giving advice on stocks, but I'm so used to trading commodities and selling commodities that it feels awkward how high we are. But it's been working.
Yeah.
It's technology. Look at all the things we use. Apple, Google, all those companies are trillion-dollar companies. Technology is just blowing us away.
Unbelievable. Well, it's an interesting time as always. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. We'll be back with more AgDay coming up in just a minute.
Interested in spending a day with a trader? Call Tommy Grisafi at 800-664-4383.
Meteorologist Cindy Clausen joining us with a look at rainfall over the past week. And Cindy, you can see where that concentration was last week.
Yeah, you know, the past few weeks we've seen these storm systems coming through the eastern part of the country and dropping a fair amount of rain, and we saw that over last week as well. Now this just goes through Friday, so we don't have the weekend numbers in there, but you can see a focus there in parts of the southern United States, along the Gulf Coast states, and all the way up through the Missouri and Mississippi River Valley up into the Great Lakes as well. Another focus has been and continues to be in the Pacific Northwest. So what has all of this done for our drought situation? Well, not really a lot, because the drought really resides in some of these areas that haven't been quite so wet, other than the Pacific Northwest. You can see, though, that it's going to be the western parts of the Gulf Coast states, a lot of Texas, a lot of the Four Corners region, and even into the Northwest, although we are certainly chipping away at that. Now, 4 weeks ago, you notice there's not much of a change. We see actually the eastern edge of this starting to kind of chip away as well. But with all of that extra moisture in the Northwest, especially closer to the coast, we're going to be seeing some improvement there. All right, let's take a look and see what we're expecting as far as this week. And for the most part, overall, temperatures should be above normal. Now, as we showed you the jet stream earlier, we have a big trough coming in late in the week, so that may kind of put a damper on some things in the northeastern part of the country. But overall, for the week, we're looking at a lot of the country with above normal temperatures. Now, as far as precipitation, looks a little on the wet side in a lot of the eastern part of the country. Of course, that continues in the northwest, but we're staying dry in the southwest United States. Not any real strong signals one way or the other in a lot of the central part of the country, so we'll just call it normal. As far as the next 30 days, though, it looks like we turn a little bit more to the cool side. Great Lakes all the way into the northern plains, the northern high plains, and then we're going to be seeing warmer than normal temperatures, Florida, and then down over into the southwestern United States, especially over towards California. Fairly normal in most of the rest of the southeastern United States. As far as precipitation over the next 30 days, we're going to be on the wet side in much of the southeast and into the western Gulf Coast states. We're going to be also wet in the northwest. We could use a little bit of that for the drought, but it has been a lot. We've been having system after system coming in to the Pacific Northwest. A little on the dry side in the upper Midwest, and dry conditions will continue as we get into the southwestern United States. That's a look at your national forecast. Now let's check out the weather where you live. Morton, Washington, rain likely for you today with a high of 46 degrees. Trenton, Missouri, mostly cloudy with a high of 34 degrees. And Sebring, Florida, mostly cloudy with some showers, a high temperature of 67 degrees.
Coming up, a new planter that really hugs the ground, plus Machinery Pete.
Let me let you in on a not so little secret, folks. The buyer demand for good condition pre-def tractors is going up, way up.
Hey, check this out. AGCO unveiling its first ever Fendt planter. The company says the heartbeat of the Momentum planter is this vertical contouring toolbar that shifts and hugs the ground no matter what terrain it's planting over.
We have tire inflation systems. We have weight management systems. With Precision, we have the downforce. And so all of these systems are interacting with this frame and trying to get it to move. So then we have to build the algorithms right so this holds steady throughout not just the contour, but every other thing that happens during the planting season with this machine.
The company also added a 1,000-gallon liquid fertilizer tank along with a seed capacity of 130 bushels. AGCO plans to introduce the planter to the public during Commodity Classic next month in San Antonio, Texas. Machinery Pete may be seeing a new trend in the used equipment market, especially when it comes to a particular tractor.
Well, folks, the buyer demand for good condition pre-def, pre-tier 4 tractors is escalating quickly, very quickly. I saw this building throughout 2019, stronger at the end of the year, and it's carried over into 2020. Now let's take one example, a John Deere 8430. Deere made this model from 06 to 09, so right in that sweet spot, just over 10 years old. Now last year, the average auction price on an 8430 was $96,823. That was actually up 6% over the prior year average auction price of $91,370. So think about that. A year older, but worth 6% more money. Now, all of last year at auction, the highest one I saw was this one, an 07 model with 3,260 hours, sold December 9th, farm auction, Alexis, Illinois, went for $141,000. Okay, here's the thing, folks. Last week at auction, I saw 4 sold higher than that. And here's a look at them. You can see the model year, the low hours, all these were good condition. You can see the specs. And of course, the king of the hill was the 09 model, only 1,650 hours on it, that went for $162,000 a week ago Saturday, farm auction in Charter Oak, Iowa. Now that is the highest auction price on an 8430 in almost 5 years. And I don't see this train of strong buyer demand for pre-def tractors in good condition. It ain't slowing down.
Coming up, keep farming history alive, even if it's on a small scale. Next. Over the last 100 years, farming has evolved from horse-driven implements to steam power and today's high-tech. The machinery that drove the business at the turn of the century has been whittled down into an exhibit. As Cliff Naylor reports, it captures the essence of what life on a prairie farm was like 100 years ago.
You can take a step back in time by strolling around this detailed agricultural diorama.
Here's a plow, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8 bottom plow that was probably pulled by a steam engine.
All of the wooden pieces in this miniature replica of the Chris Martell farm were carved by Marvin Martell.
He could take a piece of nothing and make something useful and beautiful out of it. He just had that knack.
Marvin was born on a farm and throughout his life spent much of his spare time carving the buildings, animals, and implements he grew up with.
Everything is set up exactly like it was on the farm, and some of the farm buildings are still out there.
The structures and machinery that didn't stand the test of time are enshrined in wood.
That's a thrashing machine, and it's driven by horsepower. Over there you'll see that merry-go-round with 4 teams of horses hitched to it that run a pulley that extended out and run a belt and run that thrash machine before there was even steam engine power.
There's a whole lot of agricultural history to take in here.
But it's something that you can look at for an hour or two, and you probably didn't see everything. And you'll want to come back and look again, especially when you start looking at detail.
When Marvin Martell passed away, the town acquired his huge collection of carvings, then built a museum to display them in. as a tribute to pioneers and homesteaders so future generations can get a glimpse of what life was like on a family farm. In Medina, I'm Cliff Naylor reporting for your news leader.
All right, thanks, Cliff. Now, the museum is open by appointment. There is no cost to tour the exhibit, but free will donations are accepted. If you're in the area of Medina, North Dakota, swing by the Medina Cafe for more information. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day out in farm country.